indeed, and I want to thank each of the deputies for their contributions. I wasn't here, unfortunately, I had another meeting, but I thank Minister Oisin Smith for introducing the opening speech, and I'm quite happy to deliver this closing speech and to respond to some of the questions or queries that were raised, and then we can come back to them at, I think, later on this evening. We go into the later stages. And I'd say first and foremost to recognise that various other Deputy Calberry and others, I'm sure earlier, made the point that we don't want to be putting through legislation in this manner in terms of all stages on the same day, but this we do for only one good reason. It is to keep the lights on next winter, and it is next winter we're talking about here. But if we don't deliver this legislation and to deliver the generators and sign contracts, which I expect to do within the week, I expect EirGrid to do within the week, then we won't have the time to be able to put those generations in place. And those generations are needed because our auction system, go back to 2019, didn't deliver the similar quantity of power that we know we're going to need. And so it's a very clear, direct, immediate need. We weren't able to get those generators in the auction process for a variety of reasons. Dermot McCarthy, former Secretary General of the Government, is reviewing some of the circumstances around that, but primarily generators that had been contracted weren't actually able to be delivered. People know in the world today that happens. And also the generation, as another significant part of development, wasn't able to be developed and delivered within the necessary planning timelines that exist. And that, primarily, is the reason why we're engaged in this emergency purchase of generation. Having already agreed, this case 450 megawatts, having already agreed previously to do on a similar procurement basis, but longer time frame, 250 megawatts. That would give us an additional 700 megawatts, which next winter, on an emergency basis only, where all other power supplies have been fully exhausted, we will have these additional resources to make sure we do keep the lights on. And if we were not to pass this legislation, it's clear that applying the existing provisions in the planning system would mean we wouldn't start the construction, or we wouldn't be able to deliver those turbines until after next winter. And next winter, from the analysis of EirGrid, is where we have a particular tight pinch point. We have it this winter as well. There's no guarantee this winter. If there is ventured that certain conventional power plants became unavailable, or very cold, protracted long cold spell and so on, export capacity or import capacity from the UK interconnection not been available, for a variety of circumstances we could be in a tight situation. So we do this for the very good reason that we want to keep our power available to our people, for no other reason. And it's not disapplying, or it's not ignoring, Deputy Harkin, you asked a valid question, having been involved in the European Parliament, as you say, in the habitats and the other directives. It's not to disapply, it's to apply some of the provisions there, allow for this process to be taken in exceptional circumstances. So it's not ignoring European law, the exact opposite. It is applying European law and applying one of the provisions within the directive to allow for this planning approach to be taken in exceptional circumstances. And I believe
there are houses you couldn't have played.
You'd have to prove and show that it was within exceptional circumstances. To answer Deputy Harkin's point as well, is right through this process we've been in communication with the Commission, because we're meeting in Energy Council every second week at the moment because we're in such an energy crisis. And go back to earlier this year, I think I would have first mentioned to the European Commissioner when we were aware that we were going to have to find these sort of measures to deliver the power that the auction system didn't deliver. We, at every stage in the process, kept the Commission informed. I think the officials are meeting yesterday or tomorrow. And as the legislation sets out in section 7.3, I think, isn't it, that if this legislation is approved by the House, and if we are going to apply then for the various different measures, if we're making a decision under subsection 1A or C, then the Minister shall give notice to the European Commission stating that the designated development is exempt under the provisions, as I said, of the Environmental Impact Assessment Directive. So this is done under European law. And the legal context of this, we need to be clear, is that it actually, our system is maintaining the market and regulatory systems that the European Union insists on, correctly in my mind. There's a lot of discussion of this at the moment within the Council and elsewhere. Should we give up on all our regulatory market systems, go towards something different? I don't believe we should. So the process here is set out in that European legal context. It is the Commission for the Regulation of Utilities who's issued the direction saying we need this power. And that EirGrid, in response to that, with the assistance of state financing and revenue that will come from tariffs from households in effect, about €40 a household, that they then contract for the generators and the power generation companies. EirGrid themselves they're not a generator, they're a transmission grid company, they can't go into the generation business. So they have discussed and negotiated with all power supply companies here, all potential generators. We're open to all sites, to answer, I think, another deputy had asked a question in that regard, and have come up with these two sites, Shannon Bridge and Tarbert, which for technical and other specific reasons, they see as the optimal locations for this generation to be developed. So at all stages, we were doing this in compliance and with, and in full view of, in compliance with European law and in full view of the Commission and the other regulatory authorities who need to take place. Deputy Colberry, it is distillate, as I understand, on these two sites. The machines can also run on gas, or in the future, and I believe they will have a future value, after the period of this exceptional measurement period, the crew and EirGrid and government's approach is that those generators will be sold back into the market. Made whole, I think, is the legal term in terms of, and that will include the potential refunding to the Irish public of some of the money spent on their original purchase. And I believe there will be a significant contribution there, because anyone who looks at the analysis of how do you move to a high renewable zero carbon energy system, all the expert analysis shows, yes, you do need backup. You do need times when the wind doesn't blow, as I think it was Deputy McGrath said very astutely. Sometimes the wind doesn't blow. And in those instances, we need backup power supply. Those generators also have the capability, as I said, as I understand, to be switched to hydrogen fuel supplies as well. So they are future-proof. They won't be stranded assets in my mind. You asked Deputy Berry as well, is this enough? And the answer is no. Because what we're not doing here, what we're doing is on this emergency process to close the gap that was delivered because of a failed auction back in 2019, which only took a year and a half or so for that to become apparent. But we will need another, at least 1.5 gigawatts in my mind, of backup gas-fired generation, as well as the additional solar, battery storage, wind offshore and onshore, and interconnection to meet, and other balancing supply, including pump storage and a whole range of other. We need a whole variety of investments to be delivered. But we will need additional gas generators as well. They will come through the T-4 and T-3 auction systems, which are currently progressing. And we'll have to continually review, and that's what the EirGrid Generation Capacity Statement does. They continually review what the needs are. And we will have to respond, because we are in a tight situation. We have a lot of older plant that we need to shut down. We need to shut down Tarbert and Moneypoint, older fossil fuel plants, which are at their end of their life. So we need that significant amount of new generation capacity. That will come through the standardised auction system, not in this emergency procurement process. I haven't answered, I'm sure, a lot of the questions, but we will be able to come back, Cathaoirleach, and discuss this in a truncated time frame. I accept for the legislation, but we need this legislation in place because, as I said, within days the contracts will be signed, and this gives the board and the minister the capability of actually delivering it next autumn. And we need it. We need these next autumn. And I believe it's absolutely appropriate for the government, when we realised that there was that shortfall, to act, which is what we did, in procuring 250 in the way we've done, engaging in this emergency purchase, and making sure that we can deliver it in time, which this legislation allows us to do.